BC is a food racist.
He's such a racist when it comes to food. Yes.
BC is a food racist. Now, outside of Colombian hot dogs with crushed Cheetos or whatever disgusting, hideous shite that was, have you ever actually tried feeding him any Middle Eastern food?
Oh, get the fuck out of here. No, dude. And this wasn't Middle Eastern.
مساك وورد معطر ياسمين شباب صبايا ايمن مسكين وقت طارق اهدى كتير حكيت انت لما هوشي يبدا اسكت لا تندم عكس لوز وسكر زيهم ابيض اسمر طارق عم يتمسخر ايمن بس بتحضر نفس التايتين ع اكبر شوي لو تحكي قدامه راح يبلعك ناي زي راجنا ايمن يغزو طارق بالا غنز وروكت بس ما طارق حتى حوارهم في كتير زناخه مسك حاله.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I am Tarek, this is Ayman, and we welcome you to another episode of Hosheh MMA. Tonight, we have got a very, very special guest for you guys. And although it is my custom to always give long-winded and effusive introductions to all our guests, this particular gentleman has made self-deprecation his calling card. So I will save him the embarrassment. However, I will say this. In our minds, he is, pound for pound, the best fight analyst alive today. And certainly one half of the hosting duo of the greatest English language MMA podcast out there. He comes to you from the capital of Los Estados Unidos, Washington, D.C., the patron saint of BBLs, the savior of black livers everywhere. Morning Combat's very own Luke fucking Thomas. Welcome to the show, Luke.
I gotta say, that's a hell of an intro. Half of it true, half of it not. You get to decide which parts, but that was great. Happy to be here, guys. That was cool.
Thanks for coming.
So Tarek has this thing, right? A lot of our banter is about his long-winded intros. So we agreed today, no long-winded intros, because Luke would not like that. And somehow he made a non-intro, a kick-ass intro. Dude, that's a skill, honestly.
Yeah. It certainly is. I tell you what, you do years of radio, they just beat it into your head. They want you to start talking about your first topic. I'm not even doing a bit within 60 seconds. 60 seconds is what they want. And I always found it kind of weird because I'm like, hey, how's everyone doing sort of thing. But I will say that's one of the best intros I've ever had, long or short, whatever you want to say. Wow. That was great.
That's high praise. That's high praise.
Luke, you should have ended with that, man.
Okay, we're done here. That's it. Yeah.
All right. So I think following your radio comment, let's get right into it. Topic number 1. We're going to call this segment Marriage Counseling with Luke. Right? So me and this idiot over here, we fight like it's and in Arabic it's I don't know how to say this. You tend to get a little bit more passionate and it gets a little bit more fiery. Right? English tends to funny how like there's an effect of language that calms you down. So when you're speaking to somebody in Arabic, it's a lot easier to get angrier faster. Go figure. Okay. And 9 times out of 10, one of us will go, yeah, but Luke Thomas said this. So this particular segment is marriage counseling with Luke Thomas. I'm going to give you where I sit with a certain piece of information. That guy will tell you where he sits, and then you're going to tell us who's right and who's wrong, which is what marriage counselors do, isn't it?
All right.
Pressure.
I'm game.
All right. So a little bit on the Francis Ngannou UFC PFL deal. I am of the mindset that whilst this deal that they did with the PFL is a great marketing gimmick, it might attract some heavyweights away from the UFC to the PFL in the very short term. In the long term, it will not make any difference whatsoever to the practices of the UFC, the kind of pay that they give fighters. It's barely going to be a blip on the UFC's radar. Dana doesn't care. He takes it personal because it's personal, but as far as business is concerned, this ain't nothing and it's not going to change anything. That's where I sit. Ayman?
Okay. So I agree this is a blip for big figures, top dogs in the game, right? I don't see any major champs at Francis's level making moves like that. I do believe, though, that it disrupted the narrative, right? So the likes of PFL or Bellator were kind of had this association with washed up fighter hubs or people who are past their prime. So I think he severely disrupted that narrative right now. And I think non-big names are going to be seriously considering making a move to those second-tier organizations. And I don't think Dana's recent behaviors are coincidental. I think he's worried. Tara reckons that he doesn't give a shit. What's your take?
Ooh. Boy, these are good. These are good. Okay. Thinking this through a little bit. I would say that the one that of the two visions that were presented, which by the way are not in every way in conflict. There's some overlap there, obviously. But the parts that are, I tend to take a more pessimistic view. I tend to believe that, like, I mean, on the one hand, I can buy that this disrupts the narrative. I mean, in fact, I mean, this is the thing we've been talking about. PFL has a show tomorrow. Can anyone tell me who's fighting? You know what I mean? Like, it's not to diminish that when guys win the season, it's not hugely valuable. It is both financially and almost like a reputation restoring kind of way, like for Brendan Loughnane in particular. But the reason why they signed Francis, as you guys well know, is because that model that they've built is a bridge to nowhere. It leads to nothing other than bankruptcy or, selling off or something. Like it doesn't make money. Like this is something that I don't think folks have wrapped their head around. I don't know if there's a major MMA promoter other than the UFC that actually makes money. I mean, I just noodle that for a second and think about how dire that is.
I agree.
So getting Francis is the first piece to a place where they have access to some level of pay-per-view talent. Talent that people will pay money to see on pay-per-view. But the question is, like, does it actually work? I'm skeptical that it works. I'm skeptical that it works because I think the UFC has such a lock on the industry that nothing will break that up other than the force of law. I actually don't think that a competitor can compete their way through this problem. It's too deep. It's too tightly wound into the fabric of the entire sport, to be quite honest with you. And I think that, it's not just getting Francis is not a small thing. That's actually a really big thing. But the problem is, it's great to have Thor. You need the entire Avengers. Like, that's the issue, right? Like, getting one is like not nothing, but it doesn't actually work unless you get a bunch. And I would imagine as soon as they figured out they weren't going to get a deal with Francis, they went through every heavyweight, even light heavyweight. When are their contracts up? What can we do to bump up their pay? What can we do to extend them? What can we do in any possible way to make sure that they don't have those other pieces? So I got to say, I think Tarek has probably the more correct vision of the two.
Oh my God. You oh my God. Oh my God.
Don't yell at me. Don't yell at me.
No, but I mean, honestly, just to echo that a little bit. What, 90 cents in every dollar made in MMA goes to the UFC?
Yes.
Literally, unless there is an Ali type act or some, like you said, act of government or some catastrophic event or a buyout, you're not going to compete your way into the UFC. They can buy a Francis, they can buy a Conor. It won't make a difference. In the long term, it won't make a difference.
I guess I'll say this: if they got lazy and they'll let other heavyweights walk, that could make things a little interesting, But I just knowing the UFC, dude, they just don't do shit like that. They're competitors,
Do you think we'll see this monopoly change in our lifetime?
That's an amazing question. I really, I don't think so. I'm 43. Well, maybe. I mean, who the hell knows what the sport is going to look like in 20 years? I will tell you, in the next 5 to 10 years, I find any possible major act of governance extremely unlikely. Beyond that, though, the horizon is very hard to see beyond.
So you're 1980.
79 technically. Yeah. 79 technically, yeah. August of 79, yeah.
Closer to 44 then.
Yeah. Oh yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. Hey, I'm 43. I'm 80.
Yeah, look at your hair and look at mine. I look like I got burned by a strike of lightning. You know what I mean?
Listen, don't let the hair fool you. The washedness that is within permeates every aspect of my life.
All right, fair enough.
Right. And when we say we are P1s, like I want to fight Paquette and the other Drongo. What's his name?
Appy.
Appy and P. We'll see who's who.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Counseling question number 2. All right. This is very recent. So Ikram Aliskerov, right? We've known this dude since his Brave days. Is fighting Costa. And my take is they're setting something up for him to fight Hamzat because there's a story there. Right? There's history, there's baggage. The only loss he ever had in his career is from Hamzat back in Brave. I believe that they're trying to set up that narrative if Ikram beats Costa, which I believe is very possible. Tarek, your take.
Hang on, finish your take because you said October, Fight Island.
October Fight Island, yeah.
Well, in the Dubai show, yeah.
In the Abu Dhabi show.
Yeah,
my take is you've just dissolved that fight, right? Because you were supposed to have Costa Hamzat. Now you've given Costa Ikram in July. Like, first of all, would you ever really turn him around that fast, even if he wins convincingly? And second of all, why would you have Ikram, who, for us, and again, there's a bit of context here. Guys who come out of the Brave organization, we tend to know them quite well. Hamzat, Ikram, before these guys ever got to the UFC, we were quite, connected to them. Why would you put Ikram and Hamzat, which will be one of the best fights, for a non-title and risk destroying the star power that you've created with Hamzat for a guy who's had 2 fights in the UFC? I think they'll have them fight, but it's way down the road, not now.
Why'd they do it to Pereira? Anyway, yeah, Luke, back to you.
Ooh. So this is a good one. So I'll say this for sure. There's not a doubt in my mind they want to make that fight. Not a doubt in my mind. Now, of course, yes, a few things have to happen, obviously, but like, do they have their designs on something like that? To your point about Pereira and Izzy, there's 100% they do, 100%. So I would say that. Do they want to turn it around for the Abu Dhabi show in October? That one I'm a little bit more skeptical about, only because it's not impossible. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but that is very, very difficult to do because you fight in July. So July, August, September, October, 3-month turnaround. It is possible that they do that in October. It is possible. I would say it's unlikely. I would bet against it happening at that time, but could it happen this year or early 2024 or at some point in a reasonable-ish time frame a year from now, something like that? I think that is very much on the table if he ends up getting his hand raised in July. Yeah.
Where else is Hamzat going to fight? Like, I'm under the assumption that he has some sort of visa issues. There's no other
he
reason.
must. Yeah, he must. Not to get to Abu Dhabi. You mean like to get to the States, right?
To the States, yeah. So Abu Dhabi is one like hope right now, and there's no fight announced.
Tell us what you really think.
I think they're going to try and feed him whoever they can. That's the highest profile. Of that, I have no doubt. And they're probably trying to set this up as an option. It's just, dude, like MMA is like very hard to match make 6 months out. Like it's really not that long from here, but anything longer than a quarter, it's just hard to match make for MMA purposes. It's really, really speculative. So that's my only hang up there.
Not just that, but imagine they do it, Luke. Imagine they do it in October. And Hamzat loses.
They built the star off Hamzat. They're fine with that.
I honestly feel like, dude, I'm not going to say that they want Hamzat to lose. I don't think that's crazy, but he's young. That fight would be at 185, right? So he could. Yeah. There's still this idea of going back to 170. Also, like Hamzat. I mean, you guys know this as well as I do. Like, he's got all the ability in the world, but he didn't fight Gilbert like super smart. You know what I mean? No. Like that wasn't peak fight IQ from him. So there's a level of improvement. I think he still has to go before he even reaches his potential. A loss to Aliskerov, I don't think would be fatal, really, in any kind of way.
Fair enough. So it's a kind of split. It's kind of split here.
Kind of split, yeah. I'm going to take the fence on that. I'm going to ride the fence as much as possible here. I just want to be very clear.
It's too late for that, man. You already chose him on the first.
Okay, all right. I'm trying though. I'm trying.
All right, cool.
All right. Topic number 2 is yours, Ayman. You want to give some context here before we get into it?
Quick one. We'll just skim by this. Oliveira versus Islam. 2. I say it goes exactly the same. I do believe Islam is in a different league. That's the best way I could say it. And I do believe Oliveira is a gatekeeper right now.
Oh shit. Okay.
I do. Maybe it's my maybe it's just how I feel about Islam. I've followed the guy since day one. But I do believe it goes exactly the same way. Tariq is under the assumption that the first one was more of a fluke. And
I had my money on Oliveira in the first one. I thought Oliveira was going to get it done.
Okay. So I thought Makhachev was going to win the first time, but I wasn't like, oh, he's going to kick his ass. I was like, I think he'll get it done. Yeah. So is the question, what exactly am I reacting to? Just so I can be very clear.
Does it go the same as the first time? Or the way I say, which I anticipate that even if he does win, it's not going to be a walkover like it was the first time. He's going to struggle this time around.
It was a bit of a walkover. I mean, we should be honest about that, right? Like,
yeah, it was. It was not competitive.
I mean, here's what I think Oliveira is up against. He's not the kind of physical wrestler that Islam is. Islam is going to be much better at that. He's going to be much better at dominant pins. I don't think he's really going to get himself into too much submission trouble, really, unless he makes some catastrophic mistake. But in general, like, here's what I'm trying to point out: on the feet, he avoids a lot of the problems that Oliveira presents by simply not engaging in bad situations. Like, he really picks his shots. Islam is a bad matchup for Oliveira because he just doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He is very careful. He's very calculated. He is very strong in control positions. He takes his time when he needs to. Like, that's just not. Oliveira has a hurry up game, and and Islam is a slow it down kind of game in that way. So I just think Islam is a bad matchup for him. I might see here we're getting to a little bit of semantics. I don't think it will look exactly the same as the first one. For example, against Dariush, you never saw him jump off the ground and do the jumping knee thing or jumping kick that he does at times.
Yeah, there was none of that stupid flying shit.
He kept his feet on the fucking ground for once, right? And I'm like, okay, this is much better. I do think that some of these things will buy him a little extra life, but I just, at my core, basically believe that Islam is just going to be a really, really tough fight for him every single time. So I don't know where that puts me.
You played it well. You played it well. This one leans in my favor a bit. So,
I think a little bit. The one thing, yeah, that's the only part. That's the only part I for sure disagree with. Like, dude, Beneil Dariush is a high quality opponent, man. A high quality opponent, and he couldn't even last a fucking round against him. Like, you just have to call him what he is. He is. I mean, this is what makes Islam so good, is that he can defuse bombs like that. That dude is a bomb.
Yeah, what I meant, as long as Islam is around, right? If Islam's not around, Oliveira's the champ all day long.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, I can buy that. I can buy that.
Yeah. So
it breaks my heart.
Yeah. I think Tara has a man crush on Oliveira, to be quite frank.
Come on, man. Look at what the guy's done. Look at that. Look at that CV.
Anyway,
look at the names that are on it.
Cool, buddy. All right. So
you're a prick.
All right. So I'm gonna try and rush through this. So we do disagree on a lot, but here's one thing we do agree on. Right. Okay. We want your thoughts on it. Now, in this part of the world, we have a few names of key fighters or up and coming talent, like rising stars, all eyeballs on them. One of these dudes, his name is Jarrah. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. His last fight was against Sadibu.
Sadabu C. Yes, I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I've seen the fight. I can say that.
Yeah.
So,
Tariq, why don't you give the context and share some of our recent learnings and let's get Luke's thoughts.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I consider Ray a friend, right? So I'm a bit conflicted here. I'll disclaim that up front. What we're finding is with all the PFL have signed over a bunch of Middle Eastern fighters, right? Few names Jarrah you might know. There was Mohammed Fakhruddin. Unfortunately, he got dinged for using like everybody
Yeah.
else in PFL.
Yeah, right.
And a couple of other guys. But the matchups that they've all received were absolutely hideous. Like just, guys in there for his first season. Jarrah has an example that they gave him Sadi Boussi in his first fight in the second season, right? Muhammad was supposed to face off against Thiago Santos. Like I said, unfortunately, they both got dinged for steroids. After Sadi Boussi, they were going to give Jarrah Cedric Doumbé. How is that for a freaking nightmare? We know that Ray trains with Sadi. He trains Sadi at Extreme Couture with Coach Eric Nixick. We know that he's the matchmaker. And we're seeing that everybody who's coming in under a certain manager's umbrella is getting very favorable matchups, whereas the new guys coming in are getting basically thrown to the wolves. Now, the big question that we had is, how can you be the promoter, be buddies with the manager, be training the champ, and then also be the matchmaker?
So the short answer is that there just aren't many rules regulating this. Now, there are supposed to be some. You're not supposed to be the promoter and manager at the same time. You do have to pick one. So they're not acting in a managerial capacity, right? They're acting in a more promoter capacity. But to your point, they're around these guys at the gym. They're training them in other ways. They have access to them to influence them, affect them, whatever. Just have a ear that they ordinarily would not be able to have. There's just no regulation around that. There's just not that I'm aware of. There are a few, again, as I mentioned, but I don't think that there's anything prohibiting both being matchmaker and then, let's say, trainer. I don't think that
promoter. Yeah, I'm promoter.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can be matchmaker, promoter,
and trainer,
but you couldn't be manager in that way. So there's the split. Right. I know. I mean,
really,
your point is basically that there's just not enough firewalls to protect these interests in a way that they're supposed to be, of which there can be no doubt. There can just simply be no doubt. Yeah.
And we have this part of the world, we don't really have many opportunities for up and coming fighters, right? Like we've got some local organizations like Brave and the UAE Warriors. So when the PFL came in with views to set up in Saudi and take on a bunch of talent, we were all stoked because we're like, all right, some of these guys that we have known for a long time, they're going to get an opportunity in a big multinational organization or a big, international organization. And then bang, they're all getting fed to the wolves, just like what happened with one FC. One championship took a whole heap of guys from Egypt. And I think
that was a massacre.
Them in their first, it was
a massacre.
Their overall record was 24-1.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately,
butchered.
This is a problem in the fight game more generally. So, like, for example, you guys might not see a whole lot of this, but here in the States, what you'll see is that a lot of boxers, let's say up and coming boxers, right? I'll call a lot of prelims. So you'll see in the States, like your better communities of boxing will be your Mexican fan base, your Mexican athletes, Puerto Rican athletes, that kind of a thing. And you'll see them often get matched up around Venezuelan guys, Colombian guys from like Spanish speaking South America, which you can find some good fighters down there, but it's not really like it is in Mexico or Puerto Rico, as you can imagine, which are boxing hotbeds. And dude, those Colombian and Venezuelan guys just get fed. They get fed to the Mexicans, they get fed to the Puerto Ricans, and it's almost always in a case where sometimes you can get a spirited affair, every once in a while an upset, but they've just picked these regions to like help other ones based on the way the promotional fight game works. I'm not here to tell you that any of that is fair, but I'd be lying if I said that was only one example of it. You actually see it all the time in these other little geographical pockets.
But don't you think it's somewhat crazy for the PFL who have this like tournament style setup? It just contradicts what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, I mean, I never really, I'm not like that big a fan of the PFL tournament system. I get that it's supposed to be a differentiator, but in practice, it doesn't really work much differently than what Bjorn Rebney attempted under Bellator, except that the fights are, roughly about as frequent on the tournament side, that they have this other kind of division that they're trying to grow on the other. But like in practice, it's really not much different. And there's some interesting things about that, but it also creates a ton of problems as well. I think one thing you might find, for example, that we saw on the Bellator side when they were doing those tournaments is guys got ground into dust after doing two tournaments where you're fighting basically on that cycle. Dude, these guys get fucked up doing that, right? So that's one problem that you end up seeing. The other problem is sometimes it creates these amazing heroes, and a lot of other times it creates a lot of problems when like someone is a hero and they get beat by the unheralded. So like you're telling me, when they're creating these cards, it's supposed to be tournaments, supposed to be fair. I'm not going to call it a magic trick in that it's all set up, but like every promoter is going to stack the deck in whatever favor that they want to stack it in, and then kind of hope that it works out in the end. It's part engineering, part luck, but that engineering side can be a little bit bigger than sometimes folks really realize.
Wow.
There you go.
I know that's not the answer you guys want to hear. I will say this on the positive side.
Yeah.
I will say this on the positive side, if I may. I do feel like it remains unclear exactly what it's going to look like and when it's going to hit, but I just don't like the Middle East has got to be set at some point. You would feel like in the next, I don't know, 10 to 15 years, some kind of horizon for a much bigger footprint with elite talent in MMA. Like I just feel like it's only scratched the surface. So right now it's like a shitty situation, but like it doesn't feel permanent to me at all.
We love the game, and I mean, it's growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, jiu-jitsu here is massive, as you would know. ADCC, right?
Right.
Everybody, my kids do jiu-jitsu. Everybody does jiu-jitsu. Like it's like football here, or soccer, as you guys call it. And I think that's kind of like the gateway drug, right? So we are seeing the growth of MMA, but it's the guys that we do have that are talented. There's just like you said, they're cannon fodder,
right,
for these big international organizations, and you can't tell these guys to stay because you're telling them, listen, man, stay in UA Warriors or stay in Brave. You're actually making more money and you're having a decent career, and we love you. And they're looking at you like, oh no, man, I want to go to the UFC, I want to go to PFL, I want to go to Bellator, and they're getting ground.
But at the same time, it could be a situation like with England 15 years ago, where Michael Bisping, he was with Wolfslayer for a little while, but eventually came to Orange County and it blew up. Now, England obviously had a huge history as a boxing hotbed, still does. So again, not every part of the map will work in all the same ways. But honestly, I just feel like, again, it's hard to exactly pinpoint the time horizon, but the amount of athletic talent that comes out of there, we're not even talking, I mean, on the Iranian side, like their history with combat sports is well known as well. And I just feel like you just need one or two dynamic athletes to come out of there, really show something, and it sets in motion all these changes, the downstream changes that happen when you have an athlete from one part of the world blow up in that kind of way, especially in combat sports. The network effects from that are profound to see, and I just feel like at some point the Middle East is going to be really due for that.
Hopefully soon.
Fingers crossed.
This brings us nicely into topic number 3, which I'm gonna have a go at your employers right now, Luke.
Okay, be careful.
Yeah. No, I'm having a go at them, but gently. I'll lube up. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you know, but here in the Middle East, we have an application called UFC Arabia. So basically, Abu Dhabi Sports has bought the rights to the UFC. They've created an app called UFC Arabia. We pay like $100, and this is really going to piss off anybody in your part of the world who might listen to this. We pay like $100 a year, and we get to see everything. All the PPVs, all the prelims, all the main cards, everything for like $100 a year. But that's because obviously Abu Dhabi Sports has already paid a lot of money to have it here. So this is the perk that we get. Now, where I'm having a go at your employers is we don't get no Bellator. We do not get to watch Bellator. Showtime has given the Middle East the big fucking middle finger. We don't care about you guys. You don't need to watch it. Here you go.
Wow. So you didn't even get the one on, did you get the one that they did on CBS?
No.
The one on.
Nothing, dude.
Nothing. Wow. Shit, man. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
What would it cost these people to set up an application and just kick it out here and gather? Yeah, there's 350 million of us. We're not exactly like, it's not 4 guys and selling Mr. Sheen, like, what's his name? Charles Silent. Give us something.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. That's terrible. I had no idea. That's really awful. I don't know. I don't really understand some of the international distribution deals, even on the boxing side. Like Tim Tszyu is fighting this weekend over in Australia, I think, against Carlos Ocampo. and like none of the regular Showtime people are producing that. Like someone else produces that and Showtime carries it. Like once it goes international, it becomes a completely different business. I really don't understand. I would tell you, I'm sorry to hear that, man, because Bellator, obviously, it's not the UFC, and I think most folks who are reasonable fans understand the difference, but they also understand quality can be in a lot of places as well. And yeah, dude, like Patricio doing what he's doing this weekend is or trying tomorrow is pretty fucking remarkable. So I am desperately sorry to hear that. That sucks.
So
Thanks for bringing
man?
that up.
Yeah, we had to bring that up, man.
I'll tell them next time in the business meeting. I'm like, listen, there's 350 million people in the Middle East who want to see this shit, and you guys are just keeping it from me?
Yeah. What the hell? All right. Should we go to the next one, Eamon? Real quick. I know we're getting short on time, and we don't want to keep.
No, go ahead. I got some extra time for you guys.
You want to hang out with us, don't you? You like
there?
this?
You go.
I do have some things to do, but this is okay.
Go on, Eamon.
Okay. Just some trivia. Basic Middle Eastern trivia.
Oh, cool. God. This is going to look so bad. All right.
Your favorite Middle Eastern dish?
Ooh. Boy, that is a great one. I might give an answer that's going to disappoint you two.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, don't worry. It's not the Michael Chiesa chocolate hummus, which is just
you just took another question. We were going to ask you, why do you guys do the chocolate hummus?
I don't. My mom, rest in peace, would just be rolling in her grave. I mean, it's just the most sacrilegious. Just burn a flag while you're at it, I would say that here's the thing. If you're asking like what my mom made as like my access to that kind of food, it's nothing really all that sophisticated. Tabbouleh was like her number one thing she was really good at. She hated how much Americans put bulgur wheat in it. If you're asking like over the entire expanse of the Middle East, honestly, my favorite dish is a Persian dish. I know I don't know if that's upsetting or disappointing.
No, it's all right. Just let us know what it is.
It's sultani. It's when they have it's
sultani kebab.
And then with the barg on the other side, and then they have the tomato that they roast. I got to tell you, my friend introduced me to that in high school, and my best friend is Persian, and it blew my fucking mind. That was one of the most amazing things I'd ever had. So that's kind of my favorite. It's kind of my go-to.
I'm gonna stick with the tabbouleh.
It's good. My mom's was A+, bro. It was like I've had good hummus in the years since she passed. I've never had like really good tabbouleh in a long time.
Yeah, it's not easy.
I can't remember the last time.
As simple as it is, it's really not easy to make really good tabbouleh.
It's like Italian cooking. It's not a lot of ingredients.
It's
how you have to exactly know.
Exactly.
It's peasant food.
It is.
It's what?
It's considered like peasant.
Yeah.
And that's the best kind of food, right? Za'atar, libneh, a little bit of bread. That's it. That's all you need.
Yeah.
All right. So next trivia question. BC is a food racist.
He's such a racist when it comes to food. Yes.
BC is a food racist. Now, outside of Colombian hot dogs with crushed Cheetos or whatever disgusting, hideous shite that was, have you ever actually tried feeding him any Middle Eastern food?
Oh, get the fuck out of here. No, dude. And this wasn't Middle Eastern, but the principle is the same. Okay. So we were in London in February, and I think I said the story on the air, but it's worth repeating. I hope your viewers really and listeners get to hear this. India's far away. I'm probably not. I was born there, but I'm probably not going to visit it anytime soon. So when you're in London, you got to realize outside of India, this might be the best Indian food in the world. Right. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. Like, it's got amazing Indian food. I realize that there might be other parts of the Middle East that I'm discounting. Certainly on the European side, that's going to be the best Indian food.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We left some dinner that was okay, and like there was all these Indian spots, and our producer, BC, didn't say it was the worst thing in the world. Our producer left to go to Burger King. And I wanted to go with someone and sit down at this Indian spot, and they wouldn't even go with me. And I'm like, right, okay, let me see if I understand this. One of you would rather go hungry, and then another one of you would rather go to Burger King than go to an Indian spot like right by here. So let me tell you, BC has the palate of a toddler. chicken fingers and everything else. And it would be fucking impossible. I think that you could probably what would you say is like the most easy to eat for a food racist of Middle Eastern food?
You've got to start him down the food racist easy road, which is shawarma.
Shawarma.
Yeah. Okay. A shawarma sandwich or whatever. Yeah. Falafel maybe. Falafel maybe.
Oh,
Falafel's a step up.
Falafel's hit and miss. Not everybody can make a falafel.
There's actually a good place in New York City called Mahmoud's. And
yeah,
they sell $2. They sell $2 falafels.
I bet they do.
Dude, it was amazing. True story. It's in the East Village, which is like this fairly nice area. It's next to this place called the Comedy Cellar, which is where you've seen Jerry Seinfeld and everything. And Natalie Portman was one time in front of me in the line buying $2 falafel from Mahmoud's. It was pretty cool.
From Mahmoud's.
When you say $2 falafel, are you trying to say it's cheap?
So $2 would be for New York City. You're just not going to find the only way to get cheaper food in New York City is to steal. That's really about it.
Or eat the rats.
Back in Jordan, a falafel sandwich would cost you about 15 cents.
Yeah.
Literally
well, listen,
cents.
Manhattan's expensive. I don't know what to tell you. They got to pay the rent.
Yeah. It also back in Jordan isn't as nice as Manhattan.
Yes,
So,
I've been to Jordan. I've been to Jordan a long time ago, but yes, Manhattan is uniquely fucking expensive.
Any upcoming trips to this part of the world? Dubai?
I was in Beirut. I was in Beirut in 2018 because that's where my mom grew up, and I had never seen it. I'd actually never seen it.
Oh,
so
no
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it's so weird, man. My sister was born there. My mom obviously grew up. My mom was born in Aleppo, Syria, like all of the Armenians who got pushed out.
Yep.
And they ended up back in Lebanon because my grandfather, who was sold garments for like fine men's clothing to Europe, and he did it from Beirut. Ultimately, he left during the war and never came back. But so I'd never seen it. I'd only ever seen pictures. I'd never seen. My mom went to AUB, American University of Beirut. I'd never seen it, so I went to go take a look at that. And it was funny. I never realized this, but I guess my grandparents got divorced once the Civil War started going. My grandfather died in Paris on his own, and my grandmother stayed. And I remember like never thinking much about it, and then being like, how the fuck did she stay through that big ass war and then like just never left? She died in Beirut, like of old age. And it was because funnily enough, her house, the house they grew up in, was right next to, at the time, the Saudi embassy. And she basically figured, from a proximity standpoint, that was probably a reasonably safe place to be during that tumultuous time. And she was right, actually. So I went to go see all of that. But I went to Turkey, which is also, obviously a little bit different, but Middle East as well. And 2014, I don't know when I would go back. I don't know. Lebanon was cool to see, man. But like, my mom's death was tragic. And part of it was really cool to see where she came from. I felt like I understood her a little bit better, when I saw all the street signs in Beirut are in English, French, and Arabic. Like everything is, I understood her a little bit better from that. But at the same time, it made me a little bit sad about how far apart she had gotten from that life, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I don't have any present plans, but I'm sure I'll be back at some point somewhere.
That'd be awesome, man. It'd be awesome to have you here, especially in the UAE.
Yeah. You need to visit.
I hear good
Dubai,
things.
man.
I hear good things about Dubai. I don't know, man. I've kind of tweeted some shit about the UAE at times. I don't know.
Oh man.
Sorry.
You sure? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just turn up.
Just listen to Tarek. Yeah.
You're here on a tourist visa. Whatever. Just rock up. It's great for the family.
If I tell you what, if I ever make it, I'll definitely hit you guys up.
And it's visa on arrival.
Yeah, of course.
So you could do it at the kiosk.
You arrive and you go to the kiosk and you get your visa,
bro.
So you don't have to be stuck in Paris.
There's no kiosk. You just walk in.
You just walk in, dude. The fucking situation in Beirut blew my mind. How much shit I had to get, man. I had to go to the Lebanese consulate here, and then they were like, "Why do you want to go to Beirut?" I'm like, that's not really a question you would ask a tourist who's like looking to go spend money there. You know what I mean? Like,
have you ever spoken to anyone who has to get an American visa?
No. Is it a fucking nightmare?
Now, obviously, I'm Australian, so I don't have to go through it. But a lot of my friends are other nationalities that require an American visa. Here in the Middle East, if you want to go to America, welcome to America. You need to call the embassy, make an appointment. You get one in, let's say, 8 to 12 weeks, right? Then you go to the appointment. They interview you. They ask you a bunch of questions. You give them a bunch of paperwork. Then they send you on your merry way. Maybe they call you back. Maybe they don't.
Wow.
If they do, they'll call you back. They'll tell you, bring me your passport. Not with that accent because they're Americans, obviously. So they would be like, bring me your passport. But, you know, you're the Arab. So you go, hey, here is my passport. You give them your passport and then they take a couple of weeks to stamp the visa. They give you 3 months to travel. Mate, they make your life a living hell. So
the waiting list is a year now.
Now it's a year.
It's a year.
Just to get a visa to visit?
To get an interview.
Very hard to come to America, my friend. Not so easy.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. It's nuts, man. It's nuts.
Dude, my wife has this like a similar kind of thing. Like when we were in Turkey, for example, here, perfect case. We were leaving Istanbul to go home. And my wife has a Colombian passport. I mean, she's an American now. She has an American one, but for whatever reason, she had to show that one as well. Dude, they pulled her out of line. They pulled me out of line. They were like, you got to answer. Like, what? No, you got to answer some questions. Like the 90s Colombian reputation is still in circulation among security at various airports around the world.
It's still alive and well. I've been traveling to the States for 20 years now. And on my very first visit, I got 4 S's on my boarding card. I don't know what 4 S's meant, but 4 S's mean special screening. And that's where you go into the room and you do the whole thing and you sit down and they take your bags and they empty all your shit and they ask you a bunch of questions. And every time I have traveled to the US since that first time, some 20 years ago, 4 S's. And I already know what it is. So when I'm coming to the States, I go 2 hours early.
Oh, yeah.
I know I'm getting 4 S's.
Yeah. You have to.
But I don't know why. Nobody can tell me why. I'm like, just tell me why. Like, what? Maybe it's a name.
I mean, you know. I'm not saying that the screening over here is the most scientific. You know what I mean? Like,
he's brown.
my buddy, the one I was telling you about, the Persian one, his name is like, you know how some people are like Steve and then their last name. No, this fucking guy's name is just. It's just Persian beginning to end.
Reza Mahmoud Mohammadi Ali Rafsanjani.
You see, exactly. You see, and you're like, come with us. That's what his name is every time. So he always goes to the airport early for that reason when he goes international. Same thing.
Oh man.
Well, if you have a trip coming up, if you plan a trip to Dubai, you gotta get in touch with us, man.
I will. I 100% will. Yeah.
Tuki will love it. There's a lot of family fun out here. And it's
I've heard that. I've heard it's good for families as well. So
it is.
I will keep that in mind.
I got 2 last questions that I want to ask, and then we'll let you go, Luke.
All right.
Favorite Armenian workout song?
Hold on. My thing. Say it one more time because my thing is about to die. Say it real quickly.
Favorite Armenian workout song?
Dude, I will tell you. I will be honest in my shame. Candidly, my mom didn't show me much Armenian culture.
All right.
The culture that I was most exposed to from her was
Syrian.
No, Lebanese, like 1960s Lebanese kind of cosmopolitan identity is the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
Heavily influenced by the Arab world in that time, obviously. But my mom's first language was French. It was not Armenian. She did speak Armenian or whatever, but it was much more looking in that direction than where they came from. I will just admit it. I candidly don't know much about that world.
I couldn't point Armenia out on a map, but I've been going through this Armenian music phase recently. After I heard Armin Sarukian's last walkout song, because that just makes you want to fight someone.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew more. I've been trying to learn more over the years, but no, man, I'm a little bit not clued in, unfortunately.
All right. That's it for me. I'm gonna let the man go. I know he's busy.
Luke, thank you so much, man. I have to say, part of why we started this podcast was you guys. Honestly, we took all the comedy, we left out the wits and intelligence. We have a great time doing this podcast, and we haven't skipped an episode. We love you guys. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me. The honor is all mine. I'm happy to connect with guys like you guys who really just in many ways kind of the same and certainly a lot of the same passions anyway, at a bare minimum. And if I ever get over to your part of the world, I will come say hi. I will extend the same invitation to you guys if you make it over here after some long wait and many visas and paperwork.
Consider it done.
we got a seat for you here as well. Thank you for inviting me. I greatly appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Luke.
Thanks for
Luke.
coming. And please do it again.
Anytime. You guys have my information. Just hit me up.
Much appreciated.
Take care.
Bye, fellas.
Bye bye.
Take care, Luke.
مساك وورد معطر ياسمين شباب صبايا ايمن مسكين وقت طارق اهدى كتير حكيت انت لما هوشي يبدا اسكت لا تندم عكس لوز وسكر زيهم ابيض اسمر طارق عم يتمسخر ايمن بس بتحضر نفس التايتين ع اكبر شوي لو تحكي قدامه راح يبلعك ناي زي راجنا ريمان يغزو طارق